Ryan, you and I have something in common that I want to talk about. It's um, a long-term relationship that we mentioned earlier in the podcast. Um, I was with a girl that for a long time, and I wouldn't change anything actually, just because I was just so attached to her, and just she was like family to me. But I would say that I did let I did kind of waste her time and also my time for too long. Just knowing that it's this is not going where it should, and if it's not, then I should have cut those ties before. And you said something similar to me, that you were in a relationship for a long time, and I'm sure you had a good time there, or I don't know, why don't you tell me about it? But what was that like to have a long-term relationship? And you said you kind of regret not cutting ties, sooner. What do you say about
Yeah.
that? And what do you want to say to people that actually, and I'll give you my 2 cents on it, but what do you want to say to people that actually stay too long, sometimes for a
Yeah.
lifetime, into a relationship that they actually don't want to be in?
Okay, this is a hard one because it's a newer development, but I will say this. I think, my relationship, and who knows, we could still get back together. I'll put that caveat out there. But in the situation we were in limbo, where the one person in the relationship wanted to move forward, and the other one, being reluctant, you basically, I was trying to keep someone else happy by staying in the relationship, but not moving forward. I was actually hurting the other person and hurting
That's
myself in a
exactly what
sense.
was happening with me,
Yeah.
and that is what exactly
Yeah.
happens with a lot of
Yeah.
people, that you stay in it just because you love this person, you've been
Yeah.
friends with them, lovers with them for so long, and you don't want to hurt them. And you just, what happens on the contrary is exactly what you said. You end up hurting them by being in it, longer than you wish to.
Yeah, you think you're right. Instead, you might be winning the battle in that moment, but you're losing the war, I think is a good way to say it, because it's like, okay, maybe in that you're placating, you're putting the band-aid on in that moment to make that person not truly happy. But what you're really doing is, and we know time is very valuable. It's kind of a theme today as we talk about how as we get more successful and more busy, we start to value time more than money, because obviously money is infinite, time is not. Time is finite. So I think it's hard because when things aren't bad, right? It's not like it was a bad relationship. There's no real catalyst. It's not like everything's effed up. You're yelling at each other every day, and that's like maybe an easier place to say, hey, this isn't working. But like when it's that slow grind, going back to inflation, I was talking about the death by 1,000 cuts, where things aren't moving forward, but all these things add up over time, and then bang, you blink, years have gone by, and nobody's really 100% happy. So I think it's the slow cuts that are more dangerous than the big cuts, because when you have the big cuts or something really fucked up happens, you're forced to change immediately and move on. But when it's something that's slow, it's not necessarily like a fire right on your feet, but a slow burn. I think they're the things invariably in life that get you, because then years go by. And then after lots of tiny burning, or a little slow burn, the burn is just as bad, if not worse, and more time has gone by. So I think like those are things maybe address in your life that that are hard to address because there's no real catalyst, but you got to create some sort of urgency for yourself to address them, because if not, things can go on for a very, very long time. And again, time is the most precious thing we have, period.
What do you think, Ryan, about happily ever after? Do you think it exists? Like, do you think it ever happens? Because I'll tell you, I was in a relationship with this girl. I thought I was going to get married to her, have children with her. Like, that was like, if I had to choose one thing that I was absolutely sure about in my life, it was this. And that didn't work out. And now I just have this thing in my mind that no matter who I meet now, I'm always questioning myself, like, okay, I think it's going to be happily ever after, but what if 5 years later I change my mind? And what do you think about that? Do you think it even exists? Because there's definitely people in our world that think that it doesn't exist. You basically stay together as long as it's good, and then the moment you're not happy, then do you just keep ejecting the moment you're not happy? because Jordan Peterson, a guy like Jordan Peterson, I don't know if you listen to him, but he would say that you have to stick in the relationship no matter what. Like you have to commit and then commit fully, even if you are unhappy. That's the other side of the argument. Like, what do you think about that? Or do you think that you will ever find someone that you will just be happily ever after with? Or do you think like when you hit those bumps in the road, do you persevere through? Like, how do you know it's a dip or it's a cul-de-sac? You know, like how I guess that's what I'm asking.
I think they're two different issues. I think in times get tough and getting through it is different than being in something because of the wrong reasons, right? They're two different issues. Because if you're in for the wrong reasons, you might be able to stomach the ups and downs. But at the end of the day, if you're not on the same page with what you both want, again, if you're in it because you're trying to make that other person happy, that's a different thing than like you're always, look, any relationship, there's no sugarcoating it, right? I mean, you're going to have your bumps along the way. It's just life. That doesn't exist. And anyone tells me we don't fight, they end up getting divorced or something like that's just not natural, right? So I think that's one issue. And I think having the fortitude to stay in, that's important to make any relationship work, period. You've got to have that component of it. I think it's where the relationship comes from. I think at some point you've got to decide in life, give yourself the permission to have the pursuit of happiness. And I think a lot of us do things out of obligation in life. It depends how you were raised. A lot of times we're raised, and I think Indian cultures like this, there is a lot of obligation in that culture where you're expected to be a certain way. And I think that's where your father can be a more authoritarian figure because there's a lot of plans made for you and you're meeting expectations. And I think it's true in all cultures, by the way. And obviously I've dealt with this a lot in my own life. And I think a lot of times I find this in Indian culture specifically, you can relate to this. And I think that we end up with a life of obligation. And this can all come down to who you pick as a partner as well. You feel like maybe it's the right person because it's good on paper, or that it's socially acceptable. Because I can tell you, like, there's so many relationships where it's good on paper, but in practicality, it just sucks. But we do it because of that superficial obligation that we feel that we got to deal with, and that's why ripping the Band-Aid off for things like this is really hard. So I think at some point in life, if you can come to this crosswords that you deserve the pursuit of happiness, first and foremost, and it's like a selfish thing, but it's not a selfish thing, because I don't think you can truly make someone else happy, like talking about my relationship or maybe talking about your relationships the same way, if you haven't made yourself happy first. And this isn't like in a selfish, like I'm going to go out all night and party, I don't care about you type of way, but more like, you've decided that you're going to pursue life on your terms, which is really hard to do in face of all the obligations, which are usually going to be against what you actually want to do. So I think if you can come to that crossroads in your life, I don't care if it's your 20 or 30, 40, the earlier, the better. And just decide that you're going to go for the pursuit of happiness. When you find that person, you're going to be searching for them in the context of what you actually want. So psychologically, when you find that person and they fit the bill of that pursuit that you're on, then it's going to flow with that and it jives with that. So I think you have to make a conscious effort to be happy. But that's also by pursuing things that make you happy. And again, I'm going to be willing to bet for a lot of us, it's going to be in complete juxtaposition to what other people have expectations for you to do, which makes it really hard. But when you do it in that context, which is the harder part, then you should be able to find happiness ever after, which is still a tumultuous ride where you're going to have hard times along the way. But because it comes from a certain place, that's the real key there. And I think a lot of us don't come to that ever. And I feel like by making this harsh decision that I made recently, and however it turns out, I don't know how it's going to turn out yet, part of me just said that I want my pursuit of happiness right now. And I know this isn't making this person happy or me happy. If that makes sense. That was a lot. Sorry.
Right. No. I understand what you're saying.